Coming up on today's DLLS Dallas Stars podcast, we take a bit of a change as we mourn the loss of the great Johnny Hockey, Johnny Gaudreau. We will also talk about some Dallas Stars items that we had planned, but we will first look back at the life and the career of a player gone way too soon, number 13. That's part of our show coming up right now. Hi, everybody. Today's DLLS Dallas Stars podcast begins with a bit of a different note, and that's an understatement. We've enjoyed so far this week and our first week on the air of being pretty silly, having some very spirited and I think very serious hockey conversations, but also on the lighter side and kind of making fun of each other in a way that is very much in the spirit of hockey, chirping each other and enjoying that. Well, today we take a very different tone. And for those of you that are joining us, you probably already know the news, but the great Johnny Gaudreau, also known as Johnny Hockey, unfortunately with his younger brother Matthew, were killed last night in New Jersey, where they were literally getting ready for, we've been told, their sister's wedding was scheduled for today. And they were on their bikes. The New Jersey State Police said that they were hit and killed by a driver that was trying to pass on the right. And it's just an incredible tragedy. There were rumors that started floating around social media last night. And when I woke up this morning, as we all did, we were confirmed that news that we were all hoping were just horrible rumors, as Gaudreau, Johnny, and his brother Matt were killed last night. And it's just a horrible thing. And we wanted to talk about that first and foremost. And we'll get into his career and the impact he had. So for Luds and for Sam, I'm Owen. Thanks you so much for joining us again today on this Friday, August the 30th. And Luds, you sent us a group text this morning, which I thought really captured everything. Was hockey is a big family. You treat this one like it's one of your own.
It's the way that we've all that played in the NHL, whether you play 10 games or you play over 1,000 games, is we think of it as a big family. And there's only 700, just over 700 guys that play in the NHL if you're fortunate enough to find a spot and be able to stick around. And I mean, growing up and cutting my teeth in Montreal, you really got that. And there's a saying in the room from Failing Hands, talks about the torch and you pass it on. And I really didn't know what that all meant. And then all of a sudden you're around all the great players, and Guy Lafleur and Jean Beliveau and Toe Blake was there at the time. And that's what the message was all the time. It's about us. And now as you get further down the road and have never had the opportunity, thank God you lost a member of your family. And to the sport, what he meant to younger kids, what he meant to the smaller kids, especially, to give them hope that they can all play in this game. It hits you hard. I mean, you feel it, even though you didn't play. I'd never met him personally, just able to enjoy watching him play. It's a tough day. It's a tough day for everybody in the hockey world.
Sam, I think we'll share some of the brighter things about his career too, because for me, Johnny gave us a lot of joy. And I think that's really important when you're a fan of a sport, is when you go, there's certain players, and usually it's the really specially talented ones, that you can sit down and not be a connoisseur of the sport. You don't have to be an expert. You can sit in the stands and go, hey, who's that guy? He stands out. Johnny Gaudreau was definitely one of those players.
Yeah, absolutely. And first and foremost, as Lud said, absolutely heartbreaking, just horrible news to wake up to. It hit hard for everybody in the hockey world. It's a couple hours away from my hometown, and just gut-wrenching news. So thoughts of the whole DLS team out to the Gaudreau family and just the whole hockey world. But you're right, in terms as a player, There's a reason he's nicknamed Johnny Hockey, right? The kid just knew how to do everything at a different level than most players. I believe he scored in his first NHL game, scores one of the best goals I've ever seen in college hockey to secure a national championship in 2012 with Boston College. Just heroic goals. The Stars fans will know one goal in particular that he scored, which we'll talk about. But the kid was just one of a kind talent. Knew how to do things that not a lot of people knew how to do. I remember hearing a story that his dad used to lay out Skittles on the ice so he would skate and connect the dots with the Skittles, and that's how he learned as like a 2-year-old how to skate and work on his edges. And a hockey family, great hockey player, and as I said, our thoughts are with him and his family.
The tragedy happened with his younger brother, Matthew, who was also a hockey player. And while he wasn't an NHL player, he did play in the minors. And I came up as a broadcaster through minor league hockey. I have immense respect for following that path. We're not all A-list blue chippers that go right to the, North Dakotas of the world and then the Montreal Canadiens. I smile about it, but Luds, you told me about a story, and I've seen it online since, about why both Gaudreau brothers ended up at Boston College.
Well, it's something when you hear about the history of the brothers together all the time, and when Johnny was a sophomore at school, he was going to leave and go play pro hockey, and he had asked what his brother's intentions were, and his brother told him that he was going to come and play and where he wanted to go to school. And Johnny said, no, I'm going to come back. I'll come back for one more year so we can be teammates. And, they were going to go, his brother wanted to go to or Johnny was going to go to a different school, or the brother was going to go to a different school, and they wanted to play together. And it's just, for a player of that caliber, and to say, I'm going to stay into school one more year and not go make the money that you could probably make and, get started as a professional, to stay back. It just tells you how close not only him and his brother were, but I would assume that the whole family was probably a close-knit family all the way through hockey and through all of that process for both of those guys.
And it was before NIL was a thing in college. So you're not collecting the kind of, you talk about the difference in pay. You're getting zero, maybe scholarship money. And then, who knows which booster club is giving you a meal here or there versus going and playing professionally and getting those signing bonuses and stuff. So it really was a big deal. Nowadays you have conversations about college athletes maybe making as much or if not more in NIL than they would in their rookie contracts in certain sports. That wasn't the case here.
Yeah. So, and again, it just makes a point. And this is what it's supposed to be about. Now, we talk about family all the time. And I think as much as Johnny wanted to play and move on, the family was more important to him. That's obvious. And so, and everything that you read about and you hear, and I'm sure, Sam, you have more stories than what I have heard. You can just tell the kind of family and close group that this whole, on both sides of the family, from grandpas and aunts and uncles, it just seems like they were a tight unit.
Yeah, I also know that the family reminds me a lot of Robertson's or Stankoven's, Johnston's family, that just travels miles and miles to go to these games. Like, as you mentioned, they played together and their family was at, as I understand it, every home game and probably plenty of road games in the Hockey East. It's just that support is rare, right? It's a hockey thing. It's huge in hockey. We see families that sacrifice so much for their kids to go, whether it's moving across the country into a different country to play junior and get exposed to scouts, or whether it's the Robertsons packing up that RV and driving it all over the place. It's a part of hockey that we love, and it's what we remember as kids growing up. Luds, I'm sure the same way. You remember, your parents bringing you, your friends supporting you, and that's really, that's the most important thing, right? The X's and O's are all fun and everything, but the family and the enjoyment of the game is how it all starts.
And I know you guys were teasing me when I was talking about Askarov's personality on and off the ice and being something that you gravitate to as a fan, looking for that extra little bit. Johnny Hockey had that. He had that personality. And one that I wanted to share, Ryan Clark, who writes for ESPN and used to be a beat writer for Colorado in The Athletic, said he tracked down a couple years ago some of his teammates from the Dubuque Fighting Saints in the Junior Hockey League and said that he was a world-class prankster. Part of it was because back then, again, junior hockey, you're a teenager most likely. they're having team meals on road trips. He's so small of stature that he could sneak under the table and do the shoe check maybe better than anybody because you couldn't see him. For those that don't know what a shoe check is, I'm sure Luddy was involved with plenty of those in your
I was on the
playing
wrong
dad.
end of it all the time.
Was it usually ketchup or was it whatever?
There was a couple of times it wasn't ketchup.
Yeah.
It may have looked like it, but it was a little darker color.
So there's a thing where, especially, I don't know if they do it as much in the NHL now. They have, but in the minors especially, you go to one of those restaurants to have your pregame meal. It wasn't the catered food that they usually have now in the team hotel or at the rink. And so everybody's sitting at these tables, and somebody would sneak under the tables undetected and drop like a packet of butter or a spoonful of ketchup on the top of somebody's shoe and try to sneak back to his chair. And then all of a sudden you hear all the glasses clinking. And it happened to me a couple times, but I usually avoided it. And that's that terrifying feeling of you hear it and go down and go, apparently Gaudreau was really good at doling it out and really good at avoiding pranks. And they always were trying to get him and he wouldn't do it. It just shows how much people respected him, how much he loved the spirit of the game, both on and off the ice. And look, I don't. Everybody grieves differently. For me, I think doing a celebration of life, talking about the good things and smiling and laughing is certainly one of the ways that I deal with it. We lost my dad to pancreatic cancer in February of 2023, and we did a celebration of life in Maine in that August. And it was my job, I felt, when I got up to speak, to kind of crack some jokes and be silly. Not because I wanted to belittle it. It was because that was sort of my way. I got a few laughs, which is not easy for me necessarily, but hearing everybody share stories. And then my sister did something more serious and emotional in a different way. And I really think that celebrating the life rather than just feeling down, and both are fine.
Yeah.
But to me, that's one way that I really process those kind of tragedies.
My dad died a couple of years ago also, and he wanted to be cremated. And so my brother got about 3 pounds of tanninite. And if you don't know what tanninite, it's like dynamite. Well, it put it a few hundred yards away. The whole town heard it when it blew up because he shot it with one of his M16s or an AK and blew a hole that looked like you could put a house in there. And that's ultimately put an apple tree in there and then poured his ashes in there.
Wow.
And then parked the old Alice Chalmers. It's still sitting out there with a bench right now. So, yeah, you do it in different ways. And, as far as we know, he's still around. And so, yeah, but I think when it comes to Johnny, I think what the best way is to remember all the electrifying plays that he was able to do in that era that was kind of changing. And like I said that earlier, I think the things that he did on the ice, it just gave hope to all these players, these young kids that were probably 10, 11 years old, 12 years old, maybe even just getting in out of high school hockey, saying, man, this isn't the same game that we've heard about that's, full of players and the toughness and all that. And he gave them hope. He gave them all hope to be able to play. And now look at where the game is now. And look at how many of those undersized players are controlling the hockey games.
He left Calgary as a free agent and signed with the Columbus Blue Jackets, but he will forever be known as part of the Flames organization. And for us as a Dallas Stars-centric podcast, Sam, you mentioned the NCAA heroics that he would do with Boston College. We have to talk about Game 7 from a couple seasons back. It was Jake Ottinger's first run as a goalie in the NHL as the starter. He wasn't even the starter at the beginning of that season. And he was, you want to talk about heroic, Ottinger was unbelievable as the lower seed. Remember, the Stars were just barely in. The Calgary was the top seed. And they pushed him to overtime in Game 7. And, of course, legendary status for Johnny Hockey as Gaudreau scored the winner in overtime. The Stars were one shot away from upsetting the Flames in that round. Today, obviously, we were disappointed at the time the Stars didn't find a way through. Calgary was the better team in that series, but that was one of those lasting moments for Johnny Gaudreau.
Yeah, I believe it was the 65th shot of the night for Calgary that beat Jake. 67th. There it is. So yeah, it was a wild moment. I mean, it was just a swarm. I think Jake had made 2 miraculous saves on Johnny before that. I don't know if it was overtime or the third period, but just one of those moments that you remember, whether you're a Flames or a Stars fan, and it's gonna stick. I was watching fan videos this morning of that moment and how much it meant to them. People that were, had just gone to their first game or were finally able to get tickets to a playoff game, and to see that type of moment, it just was very Johnny hockey to deliver it. But you mentioned that he went to Columbus in free agency. Talk about family. How many of us thought he was going to sign with the Columbus Blue Jackets of all teams? He was rumored to be going to bigger teams, Stanley Cup contenders. He wanted to win, and he kind of pushes all that aside to go to a team has struggled for a really long time so he can be closer to the East Coast, closer to his family, be able to see his brother. And it's just that's tremendous. And that was one of his last moments in Calgary, right? I think did he sign right after that the next season?
After that playoff series, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's one of the last moments he leaves on the Calgary Flames, and very Johnny hockey of him to do it that way.
And remember, that was the same offseason where Matthew Tkachuk was departed from Calgary out to Florida eventually as well. The shot in overtime from almost the goal line extended, catching Ottinger as he was trying to recover to that near post. It was Ottinger's right. It's just an incredible play. Some guys are doing it just trying to throw it on the net. I'm positive that Johnny Gaudreau knew that there was space and he hit his spot. It wasn't a close your eyes. And Evgeny Dodonov scored a ridiculous goal last year in a terrible angle. And I said, oh, were you just trying to throw it? He goes, no. I saw that hole. I went for it the whole way. These guys are on another level.
Well, when you watch Johnny hockey play, what you notice all the time is his head was up. He had that thing on a string on his stick. He knew where it was all the time. And I think that was it's the reason that he could skate around and make fools out of so many players, is because he didn't have to worry about where the puck was. He knew where it was all the time. It was a gift that he had to play this game. And again, you have to celebrate being able to be here and at least watch him play when he did play, because he brought you out of your seats. It seemed like every time that you watched a hockey game, there was going to be some kind of play that he made. And I know that when I did get the opportunities to watch him play, my thought was, I'm so glad I didn't play in this era. I'm so glad I didn't have to be on because he would have made a fool of me on a nightly basis, because he was so quick and he did everything with speed. His skill was off the charts, and his hands and his ability to turn on a dime and make those quick decisions was just absolutely incredible.
One of the big champions of college hockey in the United States is John Buccigross. As an ESPN personality, he has always been huge in college hockey particularly. He had a tweet earlier today that I thought was really interesting, that he said that 12 years, not that one yet, that 12 years ago, he was an 18-year-old in the 2012 NCAA championship game, and he goes, comically quick feet, hands, and brain. His comp was always Allen Iverson, a guy that was in college, impossibly small and skinny for his sport, and yet had such incredible quickness, agility, and skill that he overcame. You talked about it earlier about ushering in a new wave. I think that part of it came after the 04-05 lockout in the NHL, where they opened up the two-line pass, got rid of that, the obstruction, holding, hooking, grabbing, those kind of things. And then this wave followed. Again, he's in college in 2012. That's 6 years later, but that was the byproduct of some of those rule changes. And then we started to really see it with a player that wasn't 6'3", 220. Because you remember
Mario.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
07 Anaheim Ducks Stanley Cup. They win with a bunch of beef, bruisers, and everybody tries to copycat and go big, heavy physical on the blue line, big power forwards, and for a while, and then suddenly things shift again because you see a player of his slight stature being able to dance around all those big guys on the ice.
Yeah, the only difference between him and Allen Iverson is probably that Allen Iverson said that he didn't need to practice, and he did not want to practice. I think Johnny wanted to be on the ice every single day, whether it was practice, pregame skate, or a regular game. So, but I agree with that. The rules, and Mario Lemieux really had a lot to do with that, and deservedly so. I mean, we could jump on guys' backs and ride them all the way to the net. And, they were always complaining that we can't play the game the way the game's meant to be. And when that happened and when those rule changes started to come in, guys like that, their eyes probably just lit up, because you didn't have to worry about, the bear hugs and getting picked up in the corner and never letting go. And so it just opened the door for guys like him to be able to display the God-given talent that he had.
So we have the tweet now, John. The uncle of John and Matt Gaudreau, Jim, tweeted this. They released this statement, and that was put up on social media. I'm going to read it for anybody listening to the show later on an audio podcast. Last night, we lost 2 husbands, 2 fathers, 2 sons, 2 brothers, 2 sons and brothers-in-law, 2 nephews, 2 cousins, 2 family members, 2 teammates, 2 friends, but truly 2 amazing humans. We want to let everyone know we are receiving your messages of love and support, and we appreciate continued thoughts and prayers. We ask for your continued respect and privacy during this very difficult period of grief. From all our families and the bottom of our hearts, the Gaudreau, Morris, Corbett, Vanello, and Joyce families. And then another thing to share is from, again, the team that we're most connected to, the Dallas Stars. They put out a statement today saying that the Dallas Stars organization and Texas hockey family are heartbroken and join the hockey community in mourning the loss of Johnny Gaudreau and his brother Matthew. We extend our deepest condolences to the Gaudreau family and friends and all affected by the tragic loss of the Gaudreau brothers. And those are the two we highlighted. But guys, and Sam, I'll throw this to you. I was just scrolling my Twitter feed of, I do a list of all sorts of hockey media, and it's everywhere. It's the entire community, every team, notable players, broadcasters, you name it, former teammates, all are absolutely at a loss for words. Nobody has, look, everybody usually tends to speak fondly of the recently departed, but this is even more than that. This is a guy who is beloved by everybody, above and beyond, incredible person, and the outpouring of support and condolence is just immense.
Yeah, it's not an accident, right? Johnny Gaudreau and his brother Matthew were outgoing. Anyone you talk to, they were amazing teammates, amazing players. Coaches loved them. Family members always say how they show up to support. They were easy to talk to and loved to talk to media. They were patient. If you just want to know Johnny Gaudreau in one clip, just watch him walk into that first Columbus press conference when he got signed there. He walks in with the biggest goofy smile on his face, waving to the media, wearing flip-flops like he's been there forever. And that's just the way he was. I didn't ever get to speak to him personally, but that's just what you hear from anyone you ask. And if you look at a bunch of people now starting to share that flowers and Johnny's favorite purple Gatorade and pictures and hockey sticks are just lining up the walls in Calgary and in Columbus, it's overwhelming. And let's be honest, this is hard, right? All three of us sitting here trying to talk about it. This is a very difficult moment, and it's good to see the support and understand how much these two meant to the hockey community.
Well, when you mentioned Calgary and Columbus, the first thing that comes to mind is that there is going to be another opportunity to really celebrate Johnny Gaudreau is with the Winter Classic.
The Stadium Series.
Series, sorry.
At the Horseshoe in Ohio.
In Ohio. And so can you imagine that's going to give them another opportunity? And I would believe that event will be about Johnny Gaudreau.
It'll be in early March. I want to say March 1st, but it's somewhere in the first couple of days of March. It's the first time the Blue Jackets will have been in an outdoor game. I can only imagine.
We were just talking about this 2 days ago when we were looking at the games.
And we're going to talk about this later
TV,
in the show today.
And all of a sudden, there's that one game that we had on the schedule.
That is on national television. The only Blue Jackets game will be the game at the Horseshoe, and I can only imagine how much Johnny Hockey was looking forward to playing in that one. The home of Ohio State college football. Guys, we talked a lot about Johnny, and it's important because he's such a titan of the NHL. His brother Matthew is 2 years younger. He was undrafted. They were both listed at 5'9", and he was undrafted, played for the Omaha Lancers of the USHL, then went to Boston College, as we talked about, spent 4 years, actually parts of 5 years. No, I was right, 4 years with the Eagles in Hockey East. Then he played for the Bridgeport Sound Tigers and Stockton Heat of the AHL. Stockton at the Flames affiliate, Bridgeport the Islanders. And then ECHL stops with the Worcester Railers, Reading Royals, and Worcester again. He went back to the team in Massachusetts for a second stint. And then for Johnny, everybody knows he was a Calgary Flame at the start, but he was a fourth-round draft pick in 2011. He was not some blue-chip first-round guy. He, again, probably because of his size. And after playing in Dubuque in the USHL, 3 years at Boston College, then he played for the Flames, one game in 2013-14, but really became a pro. His rookie year was 14-15, which was my first year with the Dallas Stars. And he played in Calgary through the 21-22 season, which was their last playoff run. He played in 12 games, 14 points in that playoff run for the Flames. And then the last 2 seasons in Columbus, where he missed a grand total of 3 regular season games.
I think I heard this morning that their last year, or Johnny's last year at school and his brother's first year, they had something like 140 points combined.
So I have it here. Matthew so Johnny's last year would have been 2013-14. He had 80 points in 40 games, 36 goals, 44 assists. And 13-14 was his rookie year. Matthew had eight games played. He had 1 goal.
No.
So that was like that's like kind of like the old line of, hey, Wayne Gretzky's in his brother's total points and that kind of thing. But you know what? By the end of Matthew's college career, his senior year at Boston College, 40 games, 35 points. So he's almost a point a game guy, and he actually had 56 points combined over his last 2 seasons.
Didn't he go on to be a coach also? Wasn't he coaching?
I think you might be right, because his last year of pro hockey was 21-22, so it was a couple seasons ago.
I heard him mention this morning that he was coaching at some level.
So in the last year, they combined for 81 points at Boston College. Yeah, but heavily favored toward Johnny in that regard. Yeah. Sam, any final thoughts about Johnny Gaudreau before we give our final thoughts in memoriam?
No, just hug your loved ones, appreciate the time, and send your thoughts whenever something like this happens. We hope it doesn't happen for a very long time again.
I echo that. You don't know when it's time, and so just go out and have a good day today, because there's some people that aren't having a very good day, and they're not going to have a very good day for a long time.
Johnny Gaudreau, Matthew Gaudreau, gone way too soon at 31 and 29. And so at our show now, we pay tribute, and we'll do a 13 seconds of moment of silence. Yes, I know that's not great on an audio podcast, for Johnny and Matthew Gaudreau. We're driven by the search for better, but when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work, use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. And Indeed doesn't just help you hire faster. 93% of employers agree Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites, according to a recent Indeed survey. Leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences, so the more you use Indeed, the better it gets. Join the more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/AllCity. Just go to Indeed.com/AllCity right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/AllCity. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
And it is getting close to hockey season, which means we're also getting close to football season. And that means we're getting close to fantasy football season. So as you know, Sleeper is the best if you want to do fantasy football right. I'm not a great fantasy player, but Owen told me that last time with my terrible overall first pick. But Sleeper is there for you, whether you're good or bad at fantasy football. It allows you to put your knowledge to the test in every single game. All you got to do is pick whether your favorite or least favorite player will have more or less than their projected stats each week. It's that simple. It's easy. It's easy to win. We're just 2 days away from the NFL season, which is wild. But don't worry. Week 1 lines are up in the Sleeper app now, so you can make your picks. Talk about Dak against the Browns. See how much CeeDee Lamb is going to put up in terms of receiving yards. Whatever you want to do, Sleeper is there for you. Now go put some money on it. If you make your picks, the more picks you combine, the more you can win, all the way up to 100 times your money. If you think you have what it takes, download the Sleeper app and make sure to use the code DLLS Stars to get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. That's DLLS Stars to get a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. currently operational in over 25 states. Check out Sleeper today.
So, guys, we had to change our run sheet a bit for our plans today because of the awful tragedy that happened in New Jersey with the Gaudreaus. And we are still going to talk a little bit of some serious hockey stuff. We'll defer a few other things, and we'll tell you more about that a little bit later. But one of our planned things, the way we were going to open the show today, was talking about Stars captain Jamie Benn. And there's a couple of angles here that we wanted to touch base on. And one is Jamie Benn, at age 35, is in his final year of that massive $9.5 million AAV contract. Now, obviously, Tyler Seguin also signed a huge deal. He's got a couple more years after this year. In fact, he has 3 years left counting this coming season. But Jamie will be an unrestricted free agent after this year. And there's a lot of things to talk about. The first thing I want to do is talk about the contract. Then we'll talk about the captaincy in a little bit. He's actually rediscovered himself. There was a time where he was the Art Ross Trophy winner, and he was beast mode. Sochi Jamie Benn is one of the ones we like to talk about. In the 2014 Olympics in Russia, he was the player that Sidney Crosby says, I'm going to start my team with Jamie Benn's the first guy I put on it. He went through a dip, as did the entire organization in the next few years. You know, obviously peaked in 2015-16, that great regular season and playoff run that ended probably too early against St. Louis in the second round. Then Ken Hitchcock came in. They had a really difficult collapse after looking like they were a playoff team. Then they had some injury issues, and that followed in the next year, coaching changes. And it looked like there was a stretch where maybe Jamie Benn had lost a step. And then he's rediscovered his game. The last couple of seasons, especially under Pete DeBoer, he's been a much, much better player, and he's been a huge part. Like, we know he's a great leader. You know, there was times where fans on the outside maybe questioned him as the captain. That was only because they don't know the guy inside the dressing room. You always talk, Luds, about what he does on the ice. Everybody that's ever come into the Dallas Stars roster has nothing but amazing things to say about Jamie as their captain. And that because Jamie doesn't want to talk about himself ever. And in fact, he probably despises that stuff. He will love to talk about his teammates. And usually when I have a conversation with him, it's about something else, not him, because he doesn't want to talk. But if you say, hey, what do you think about Wyatt Johnston, Jason Robb, he'll talk about that all day because he really is that kind of person. So let's talk about the contract, then we'll talk about the captaincy in a minute. What do you think his next deal looks like? Is it with the Dallas Stars? And if so, where is the range that you would be comfortable with? Because it's not going to be $9.5 million.
No, that happens at this stage of your career. Jamie, in my opinion, and I haven't spoken to him about anything, why would you not want to be part of this team moving forward? If there's something that he's chasing, it's a ring. And, you know, you look at where this team is right now, this is their window. So I think that from a money standpoint, I would say that you're looking at a couple-year deal, whether it's 2 or 3. But I would say, you know, and he's made some money. So I think he wants to stay here, which is leverage for the general manager. Jamie knows about the cap. He also knows that there's going to be a cap going up at some point, but there's some important players here that are going to need some money. So I don't know. Can you take a $4 million haircut from where you were, and would you come back at $5 million, a little over 5? Would it be 3? I'm going to say it's going to be somewhere around 5. That would be my guess.
He's made this will be the last year of a $76 million contract.
He should be doing okay.
I'm guessing that he's set for a while.
I think he's
maybe
okay.
His kids also are pretty okay, which is wonderful. And look, when he signed that contract, he deserved it. Then it looked like it aged poorly, and he's kind of been reborn a bit.
Why was he reborn, do you think?
So my thought, and you can tell me if you think otherwise, is that I think the change in style of play, not just, there's two reasons. I have 2 answers to you. One is the way that Jamie's prepared his body and to be maybe slimmer and a little quicker. That's, the player deserves that. But I think Pete DeBoer's style of not just being defensive first, getting up the ice, stretching out, being more on the move a bit more, I think has really benefited him. And playing with the kids, especially Wyatt Johnston.
You should have led with that one.
Well, tell me that's the important part, because honestly, he looks like he's enjoying hockey as much as he ever has.
100%. He loves the game. I agree with you. I think Jamie can be a better player in the middle of the ice only because you don't have to stop and start. And as a winger, you come down the wall, a little more stopping and starting, more flow, obviously. But all that being said, whether it's this or that, when you get an opportunity to play with guys like Stankhoven and obviously Wyatt and, all these young kids, and there's a different mindset because as I got older, I'm playing with younger partners and things like that at times. And like, you're trying to keep up. You got to keep up with them. And so, but I think he's having fun. He's having fun at this stage of his career. He's having fun because they're on the brink of winning a Stanley Cup. They had a couple opportunities here. And he's, it's like a sled dog. I had a Siberian Husky, which is a bad move. And once
maybe for Dallas temperatures.
Yeah, well, yeah. But what happens is when one of those dogs, and that little, her name was Sierra, she was getting some chickens. The neighbor had chickens. And once they get to taste the blood, they're hard to have as a pet because they want to kill everything around them.
Everything. They're hunters, huh?
They are hunters. As a matter of fact, a whole nother Luds story, killed a whole petting zoo that was about a half a mile away.
No.
Ducks, chickens, goats, the whole 9 yards. Oh yeah.
Ludscapades, John.
Yeah, Ludscapade. When I got to knock on the door at 6 a.m. and we had a ball weekend, and my buddy came up to wake me up, and I said, Stumpy, there better be a cop downstairs. And he goes, Luds, there's a cop downstairs.
No.
And by the time I got over there, my dog was sitting in the back of a squad car, all full of blood. So anyway, that's Jamie Benn right now.
We'll get into those details on another
down
day.
The road. But I think Jamie has a taste of blood in his mouth, and I think he sees the people that he's playing with. I think he sees the makeup of this group. So I don't know why he would want to go anywhere else. But again, like I said, that he can't have that stance. His agent can't have that stance. But I think that Jamie has learned how to be a captain also. I compare him sometimes to Darian Hatcher. And you don't have to be real vocal in the room. But when you knew that Hatch was there, when that first big hit came, and you'd go, oh, your captain's here. Very similar to what we talked about against Vegas.
The Braden McNabb hit.
Yes. And so Jamie understands that role, obviously. He's the first guy to drop the gloves at 35 years old on this team. He will stand up and defend these players because he loves the teammate. He loves the players that he's with. So I'm guessing, would he take somewhere around $5 million?
Sam, there was a time not that long ago where, because of the salacious news that came out from the management about, is particularly the front office on the business side, about Seguin and Benn, and I'm talking about the effing horse S, or as Luddy would say, all of the words. And it felt like there was really not a way back for Jamie Benn particularly, but maybe even Tyler with the Dallas Stars long term, that whether it was through this contract or even before that, there are people in the organization not happy with Jamie's on-ice production. This was, again, years ago now. And I'm wondering did the COVID bubble run, the change of coaches, some of the restructuring up on the top kind of change? I'm not saying that Jamie's forgotten about any of that stuff. I'm sure he hasn't. But are we far enough away from that? I'll go to Sam first. That's sort of on a back burner for the rest of his career now?
Yeah, I think so. I think the bubble, we saw him in the bubble, right? He was having a great time. He came in right away and said that they were staying for a while, and he truly led that team. Let's not pretend that there were some teams there that weren't really there, right? And the Stars were not one of them, and it led to them almost winning a Stanley Cup in those bizarre situations. But he's had the Renaissance, as the fans termed it, and he looks like a totally different player. And I think Luds made a great point with who he's playing with. He loves the kids, he loves the teammates, and he's not only able to show them the way and be the leader there, but he's also able to have success with them, watch them have success. And let's not forget that Pete DeBoer also not only gave them more offense, which helped, but he also started rolling 4 lines. So we were no longer looking for where does Jamie Benn fit. When he started having those years of decreased production, we thought, we can't bury the captain on the 4th line. He can't be playing 10, 12 minutes a game. We need him to be on the ice, even if he's not scoring. But now he's on the ice. He's going to play this similar amount to other players on whatever the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 1st line that you want to call it. And I think that freed him up a little bit, right? Just be the captain, show the young guys how to do it, and just play your style of game. And that's benefited him a lot and put him in a much better spot going into the final year of his contract than he was 2-3 years ago.
And the change in the core too, because at that time that Sam was referencing, Benn and Seguin were the top dogs offensively, and you needed them on that line. You know, Ben Sagan-Spezza, Ben Sagan-Radulov, they were really dynamic lines that had to drive the offense, especially on a couple of years where the Stars didn't have two scoring lines that were a threat. They were a one-line team at times, and then they had to make some moves to try to bring in a guy like Matt Zuccarello and create some balance in the lineup. Well, now it's Rope Hintz, Jason Robertson up front. Wyatt Johnston is a big part of it. Matt Duchene comes into balance. But when you have Sagan and Ben, and they don't have to be your top line drivers, then you're not so worried about the contract numbers because it's more about just making the pieces fit. And it just feels like this Renaissance that Sam brought up is a great name, but he's a completely different player in a very good way.
I remember, again, go back to when the first Hall of Fame, the Dallas Stars Hall of Fame, and it was Hitchcock and Hatch went in. And I said to Jamie that night when we were there and we were up by the bar having a beer, and I said, how's it going? How you doing? He goes, great. And he had this huge smile on his face. And he was chatty, and Jamie's not always chatty.
No.
But you could tell he loved where this team was at. He loves playing. There were years ago when Jamie would have been second or third year. I remember that I had sent him, I texted him and I said, hey, I'm going to send you a couple clips. And I recorded some stuff on my phone off of a game that I believe it was against Toronto. And I said, just look at it when you have time and just get back to me. And I want to know what he thought. And I remember what he was doing. He kind of playing like Tyler Seguin. He was kind of playing this kind of game. And he said, well, I could have shot that one. And I don't remember what his answers exactly were. And I'm like, not what I was seeing. I said, you're a straight line guy. Like you make an impact when you go through people. You don't go around them and you don't get into that. Not that he can't do that because we've seen him do it, but when you see Jamie, if you're an opponent and you see that first hit or you see that guy, you're like, oh shit, their captain is here tonight. And when you see him this is my opinion, when you see him trying to dangle around and stuff, you say to the guys on your bench, your teammates, you're like, don't wake him up. We want that Jamie Benn to play. We don't want the other Jamie Benn to play. And so I think he's got into that, and now he understands, like you talk about, he's not the young guy, but he's found a way. I give Pete DeBoer a ton of credit for what he did because there were talk, like Sam mentioned, there was talk where Jamie was going to play down here on this and that. But what he did is he ended up putting him on the first power play. And so what was happening was he may have not gotten the 5-on-5 minutes, but his minutes were staying there and above because he was getting PP time. And then he's just a monster when it comes to faceoffs. I mean, he has.
And why is that?
Well, it's his strength.
There's two things. One, he's really good at it, but two, he's only taking ones on his strong side.
And that's the beauty that
they're setting him up to be successful.
Correct.
Which is great coaching.
When he can pull it back on his left-hand side, and then you got, again, that's the one thing when you look at the lineup that they might not have this year is they got a lefty-righty on each line. So regardless, you can have, whether it's Duchene or Sagan or Jamie or Wyatt, whatever it may be, they can come in on those sides. So, but again, everything that Pete DeBoer did when he came here and all this talk about maybe moving him down to here, he still found a way to get him into that game and got his minutes there. And all's a credit to him because he's bought in. He's bought into whatever role it is. And as a captain, you have to do that because you see your captain pouting, it kind of sprinkles over. And Jamie doesn't do that. Like I said, Jamie be Jamie, and Jamie Benn is a beast. And when he plays that way and he keeps himself in shape, if he wanted to play another 3-4 years, 5 years, he probably can. Injuries, stay away.
And if he can play the way he's playing right now, and at a
do you want to see him on another team? You want to see him playing for Colorado?
Honestly,
for $2 or $3 million to come in here and beat Dallas for a cup.
It's funny you say that because every time I see a former star that comes in with another team, they have the same answer. Because I'll ask them, hey, who are you looking forward to playing against the most, and who are you least? And they say Jamie Benn.
Yeah,
because they love the competition, but. Man, I like him a lot better on my team than against me. So exactly you're right. At the cap hit that he's at now, the answer is no. But that's, as you said, if it's 5, if it's 4, if it's 3, it's even better. But because you do have some young guys that we talked about yesterday, you have to pay.
Which is the pitch that Jim Nill is going to give him,
right? No
doubt. You know where we are. You know where our team is. You know how close we're knocking on the door. And a lot of times your window, every team will have a window. This is our window. And you got to win within that window in typically 2 to 3 years. You don't have 4 or 5 years typically because the salary cap and all the other things that come into play. this is the window, and the window is not going to be open for, well, it may be with this group. Who knows if it's going to, I mean, the things that they have coming up, it could be.
It feels like it's perpetually open. And
when you look at Miro, when you look at Odd, because again, it's about down the middle of the ice. You have a goaltender, you have a defenseman, and you have a centerman, you know, and so
and
you
they're
have
adding, you know, a guy like Liam Bichsel to the mix coming up. They have Bork and Stankoven is the next wave with Wyatt just scratching the surface.
Yeah.
It's a very exciting sort of carousel.
And you want to be part of that.
I would absolutely. So, Sam, here's the question. If the Stars win a Stanley Cup this year, which I think they should be one of the contenders again, does that change Jamie Benn's thoughts about playing beyond? I mean, I'm not asking you to speak for him, just your thoughts.
I don't think so. I think Jamie Benn, like Sean said, it's one thing to want, but sometimes the money does become a thing, and no fault to players. They need to make money and support their families to do this. But for Benn, he's made money. He loves the city. He loves the team. I'm sure if he could pick, he would love to retire as a Dallas Star. And I don't think that he'll have an issue. Again, this is just speculation, but I don't think he'll have an issue taking a discount in order to do that. I think he has years. He's realized that he's not like one year away from retirement, like maybe was creeping into his head when he was struggling a few years ago. But I think that he wants to be a Dallas Star, and I think that the Cup doesn't change that. I think that if anything, he'll want to come back and do it again and try to win a second one. But I am curious, either Owen or Luds. We saw Stamkos sign with the Predators around a similar age. I'm not saying they're the same player. Obviously, Stamkos is still playing at a little bit of a higher level. Where do you see that on the tiers? Stamkos got 4x8. Where do you see Benn compared to Stamkos? Is he well below that, or is he somewhere in that range?
Well, if Jamie's listening, Benner, I hope you get 8.7. Okay, I hope that's what you get. You know what? It's Sam. To be honest with you, it's a tough question because I think each club has a different way that they look at it, right? And where they're at. I think what Nashville has, they're hoping that they're going to win in the next 2 years. I mean, you've got Marchessault and, you know, again, Yossi, Stamkos. You're thinking of guys that, you know, they're not spring chickens, right? They're more towards the end of their career, and Trotz goes out and he brings some guys in to create some more energy and said they wanted to get, you know, a little more exciting, which they do. You know, their goaltender's probably in his prime or maybe a little bit in that neighborhood above it. And so, but I think when it comes to Jamie, I don't know if I put Jamie, I'm thinking how valuable he is to this team, and do they have another player on this team right now, right, like him, that brings what he does? They don't. So again, that's why I'm thinking he's somewhere around 5. Stammer, whatever you get, God bless you, and whatever you decided to sign, he's got to burr up his ass, that guy. He wants to go someplace and win because I believe he wanted to stay in Tampa Bay.
I think you're right.
And so he's like,
I mean, he already has the cups.
Yeah.
He's got the rings.
Exactly. And so this is more proving a point. Like, you should have paid me to stay there, but I want to win another one, and I'm just going to ram it a little bit further up.
I wouldn't be surprised. Now, I want to say this for another segment for another day, but I wonder about the next number in the rafters at American Airlines Center. And is it number 14? He's already climbed up most of the, you know, other than maybe Mike Modano, most of the offensive player categories for career numbers. Does he need the Stanley Cup? We'll talk about that on another day. We're going to carry this over because I want to ask the captaincy question of who succeeds Jamie Benn. But first, we do need to tell you about Rugged Road. In fact, we have a Rugged Road cooler drink right here. It's not just coolers. We also have the insulated cups. We want to keep your beverages hot or cold for a long, long time. Well, Rugged Road is dedicated to creating innovative and durable outdoor gear for adventurers who demand the best. Our products are designed with the highest quality materials and craftsmanship, ensuring they perform in the toughest conditions. Whether you're on land or water, Rugged Road gear is built to accompany you on every adventure. One of the most unique features about Rugged Road coolers is that they have the ability to always float upright. You never lose a drink. These coolers right here, these insulated cups, will keep your beverages amazingly cool for up to 7 days. Now, I don't know if you guys are the same way, but I am a northerner living in Texas for over a decade. I still don't deal with 100-degree weather well. So having my ice water not melt and stay cold is really important. It's why I have these cups all the time. Maybe in the cold winter months up north, you want your hot coffee, or maybe Sam's hot cocoa with the little marshmallows in it are staying hot and they won't get cold. Either way, Rugged Road, really, really versatile. So gear up with your next adventure with Rugged Road coolers and cups. Reliable, durable, and built to use, Rugged Road is your ultimate outdoor companion. Head to ruggedroadoutdoors.com and use the code DLLS for 10% off.
I don't know about you, Sam, but you and I are getting the short end of the stick here. I'm doing the damn disco channel. You're doing the Empire thing. He's getting perks. He's getting mugs. He's getting Shady Slim glasses. He's getting everything.
Shady
We're
Rays.
getting a Shady Rays. We're not getting anything. He's got all these little toys he takes home every day.
Well, it's good to be the king.
Yeah.
Before we go to our final part of our segment about Jamie Benn, I do want to do a quick programming note as we talk about being a DLLS subscriber. We had planned, because we've had this really fun interaction with our Discord subscribers through the DLLS subscriber system, that we've had this sort of running joke with Luds with doing his reads about that. And we compiled already from our subscribers a great group of questions and some silliness. But we felt that it wasn't right in the spirit of today, with the horrible tragedy that bespoke the Gaudreau family, that maybe we shouldn't be overly silly today. So from that standpoint, we are pushing our damn Discord channel with Luds questions and answers to next week. We will do it. Maybe we'll even do 2 next week and have some fun with that. But what we will tell you is that on our next show, we don't have a show on Monday, Labor Day, but we will be back on Tuesday, and Brad Alberts will be our first in-studio guest here at the DLLS headquarters in downtown Dallas. Stars president, Brad Alberts, will be here. So if you are a subscriber, go to the Discord channel. If you have anything you want us to ask or bring up to the Stars president, we'll take a look and we'll hit Brad with some of the Discord questions. I would imagine that they may not be the same technological themed questions that we will get and we've been getting for Luds. But again, Brad Alberts will be on our show. It'll be 11 o'clock live from our studios on Tuesday. So go to alldlls.com, click on the subscribe button. You'll get a free t-shirt, a code for that. So that already covers a bunch of your annual subscription costs. You can get to the Discord. You can ask Brad, and we'll have many other guests join us as well through the course of the year. And then, of course, Luddy's damn Discord channel as well. So we'll get to all of that. Finally, guys, as we get to the last part of our show, let's talk about the successor. I'm not saying goodbye to Jamie Benn, and I think even if he signs another, more reduced salary contract, he will probably still be the captain. Mm-hmm. You have played for a bunch. You talked a lot about what you liked about Darian Hatcher as your captain. There has to be a succession plan at some point. So if you look at the current Dallas Stars roster, who do you think, Luds, might be the next captain after the Jamie Benn era, which, by the way, longest in franchise in the history of the Dallas Stars? He's been the longest serving captain. Who follows him?
I'll be honest with you. When you're not part of the team in some shape or form, it's hard to know who the leader is in the room. Who's the next guy. So it's a tough question for me to answer, because I don't hear those guys. And it's easy being the captain when everything's going great. So who are the guys that stand up when things aren't going so good? And I guess my first instinct is Miro. I just think, you want someone that is willing to take that on, and he seems to be the kind of guy that would. I don't know how he is with players. I think you have to have a guy that's willing to be able to say the hard things at the right time. And, and you're not saying it because you're down on a player, but sometimes it needs to be said. You're always looking for guys that will spread the message from the coaching staff. I mean, when our group was put together, there were 4 or 5 of us, but what we wanted to make that group into 7 or 8 or 10 or 12. And you wanted to pull everybody into that group. You're not always going to get everybody in there. And so you have to have those kind of guys that can relay the message in the right way. And you got to be able to have some balls to go to the coaches. And there's times when you can say, listen, we need a day off, or we don't need this, or we want to do this, or we'd like to do it this way. And you have to have those conversations. So, and Wyatt comes to mind, of course. I mean, but and again, there's probably somebody else in that room that somebody's going to say this and that, but you have to have guys. It's not just one. That's one thing. There's one guy that wears the C, and then you got the other 2, 3, 4, whatever they decide, but that's your leadership group. So the guy that's going to carry the flag, I guess right now my first instinct would be Miro.
Sam, Luddy brings up a really interesting point about you need a guy that can back it up on the ice. Doesn't have to be your best player. It doesn't hurt to have that. But you also need to have somebody that's going to be around. And especially in today's day and age where, salary cap situations are very tight with teams and players get moved and traded, you need somebody that's got enough contract term that's not going to just be here for another year or two.
Yeah, I just want to bring up an interesting point. So Jamie Benn was named captain in 2013. He was 24 years old. He was the leading scorer the year before that. That was if I remember correctly, the Victory Green, new jerseys, the Victory Rising, all that that came with it. So a big moment for the organization. Who else is going to be 24-ish around the time that Jamie Benn potentially is done playing? Who else leads the team in goals and probably will do so again next season and for a couple of years after that? It's Wyatt Johnston. So Luds mentioned it. That's my pick. But as Lud said, there are options and there are things that can shift. There are things we don't see. But in terms of someone, if you're looking at the surface, Wyatt Johnston not only is gonna be one of this team's best players for a long time. He got to experience it playing with Benn, probably will play with Benn again. And he lived with Joe Pavelski. I mean, what is there anyone better to learn about being a leader than Joe Pavelski? So that's a great pick for me. I think that they have options. Miro is one. I wouldn't be surprised to see Logan Stankoven somehow be a captain of this team at some point. You got players like Rope and Robo. It's a deep group, and the organization talks about it all the time. I think Jim Nill has talked about it countless times. This is a unique leadership group where it's not just one, it's not just two, it's not just three, it's 8 or 9 guys. Especially when Joe was around there. If one guy is having a tough game, let's say Jamie is, doesn't have many words to say because he's struggling, whatever it is, there's 4 or 5 other guys that can come in and say the right things, do the right things, whether it's someone who leads by example, whether it's someone who is more vocal than maybe Jamie is. They have plenty of options there, but I think it's a funny little fit there that in a few years that Wyatt could be in a nearly identical position to where Jamie was when he first got the C.
Well, and Sam, Joe was wearing an A last year, correct? So what'll be interesting is who does that one go to this year? And I don't know. Again, I don't know who it's going to be. The one thing you don't want to do, just because it's your franchise player, it's your best player, that you give them that letter. It happened to Mo, and you know what, Mike, as good as player he is, and the worst thing is they took it away from him. Like, you want to talk about a kick in the balls. I mean, I don't care
Toronto
who you are.
just did that with John Tavares going to Austin Matthews, and that's not an easy transition when the guy's still on the team.
And he's only got 1 year left, though. So I agree with that. Yep. I agree. And we don't know what goes on there.
Sure.
But when whoever's making all the decisions, like, don't run into the Madonna thing, because that's not a good way to go. But you have to get to know the player's personality too. Mike was never the guy that was going to stand up in the room and give guys shit at this time and, hey, we got to do, Mo just went out and did it. But he didn't, to me, it wasn't the personality that can have those hard conversations with people and your teammates. You have to be able to have that. You have to have that fuck you fight sometimes and say, listen, you got to, but what it does, it's about accountability. Because I had Gainey say to me one time, he goes, Luds, and I was a kid at the time, I was in Montreal, and he goes, Luds, why don't you ever say anything? And I'm thinking, Jesus, I'm in my 3rd or 4th year in Montreal Canadiens, and I got Gainey and I got Lafleur and Robinson. Like, what do you mean I don't say nothing? And I was thinking that. I never said it out loud. But he says, you know what? I think you're afraid to. And he goes, because as soon as you say something, now you have to hold yourself accountable for what you said.
Interesting.
Yeah. And so you're basically putting your ass on the line. Like, hey, we got to do this. I had guys that I coached, and I'm like, you got this kid over here that's saying, we got to go do this. You got to hit these guys. You got to run them. I'm like, I remember saying, Chad, you don't ever hit anybody. Like, if you're going to say it, then you have to do it. So you have to have those kind of players that are willing to back it up. You're going to, you're going to talk the talk, you got to walk the walk.
I'd like to throw in one extra one for you real quick, because I agree. I think Miro's my front runner because of his clout. He's the best player on the team, right? Usually don't give a goalie, otherwise maybe Jake Ottinger.
That's the dumbest idea.
But you don't do that. So
Hate it.
So I'm not going to suggest that. I think Wyatt's a great option, especially as Sam's points laid out about his age. I like the idea of another Captain America as another U.S.-born player. But here's a dark horse for you. I was just sort of perusing the roster. What about Thomas Harley? He is a skilled defenseman. He's only 23. He's an incredibly thoughtful guy when you talk to him. He doesn't just, I'm not saying that other guys necessarily give you lip service. He takes his time and considers things. Like Luds said, I don't know the internal dynamics of the room. So this is only wild speculation from the outside. But I was just thinking about a guy who's probably due for we talked about it the other day with Sean, huge contract. So
but money doesn't give you a letter.
No.
But I think he's
down
a few years away.
Right.
I agree.
But I also think that Jamie Benn might be at least a few years away from hanging up the skates.
I agree with that.
That's my dark horse. I think it goes Miro, Wyatt, and then maybe a guy like Harley or Jason Robertson or something like that. But those are my guesses.
We're getting
for Harley, it's maturity, right? Maturity is the big part, and everyone always talks about how mature he is beyond his years. So that's definitely something they'll look for.
Well, that wraps up our show today. Reminder that we will not have a show on Monday, Labor Day, so we hope you have a great Labor Day weekend. We'll be back on Tuesday, and that will be our first live in-studio guest appearance with Stars President Brad Alberts. Remember, if you get on the Discord by becoming a subscriber, you can send us your questions, thoughts, and we will take some of the best ones that we like and give those to Brad during our Tuesday show. And we'll talk about things like the team victory plus your Discord questions and all of that. And then some point next week, we'll get to the damn Discord channel with Luds, which will be wheels off and really fun. As we close out the show today, though, guys, just I think that there's nothing that we can say that can adequately do justice to the tragedy that happened with Johnny Gaudreau and his brother Matthew Gaudreau. But let's start with Sam, Luds, and then I'll close it out. And just any final thoughts on today's show about the way we started today with that incredible loss of life?
Yeah, as I said, just take advantage of your time and hug your family, text the people and tell them you love them, and just enjoy what people bring, right? Enjoy what the personalities bring to hockey. Enjoy what we get to watch, the years we enjoyed of Johnny, the success of Matthew and Johnny together at BC. Just understand and appreciate all that's going on. Try to understand what the family's going through, and just send your thoughts. And like I said, appreciate.
Yeah, I really can't add a lot to that. My thing is I'm going to remember all the things that I remember about Johnny Gaudreau. Didn't get to see his brother Matthew play, but the same thing is there. The brothers left together. They were obviously great friends, but I will remember all the electrifying things, like I said earlier, that Johnny Gaudreau was able to do.
He brought us joy. He made us love the skill and speed of hockey, the great personality, and the great person that he was. And we will be forever thrilled to remember that, but also we'll be tragically mourning his loss and his brother's loss, especially for a show which all four of us, including Sean, who's not here today, are big proponents of college hockey, and they came up through the college system. So that does it for our show today. Don't forget to please follow at DLL_sports, our main Twitter account, as well as our more specific show one at DLLS_stars. Make sure to like and subscribe. It all helps. We've had a great first week. Obviously, this has ended on a really horrifically tragic note, but we hope to have a lot more fun and continue moving forward as we get ready for the start of the next NHL season, which is less than a month away now, at least as far as training camp is concerned. And again, we send out our deepest condolences and sympathies to the Gaudreau family and anybody that knew Johnny or Matthew. For Sam, for Luds, for our producer, John, I'm Owen. Enjoy your Labor Day weekend. So long, everyone.
We all silly like the mayor.